This is the first DVD that actually takes place in the year 2007. Now, why don't these birds seem that like they care? I need to have breakfast. I need to evaluate the weather report for the day. It's always nice to start the day, start the year with a bunch of happy birds. Now, in less than a half an hour, the time it's taken me to have my cereal, they've wiped out the feeder. They're on the bottom row of the feeder. These are my constant breakfast companions. These guys and Woody the Woodpecker. What a way to start the day. Well, after looking at the weather report, this day's shot, we got 25-mile-an-hour winds out there now, and it's only supposed to get worse as a little bit of a nasty weather's going to go through here. But we have lucked out at the end of 2006 to the point where we actually had about 2 free months of flying, but now it's time to get some building done while the weather's crappy like this. Now, the last time we worked on the 90 project, we had found this is a pretty roughed out block. I'm not sure. I was hoping I'd find something a little bit better, but you know what? I didn't. And we spent a lot of time trying to get weights on it to get it straightened out. I think it's good enough to use right now for a top block. I also got two. One of them is pretty good, one is mediocre blocks that we're going to use for the bottom. But it's time to start laying out the block shapes. Now, thanks to these drawings that I have, these copies from Gerald Champ, I'm going to make a pattern. I'm going to make a side pattern for what this block will look like from the side. Still got a bow in it. See, you take it out of the mold and it goes right back. Not really. It was a lot worse before, and we'll try to dress that. Step one is we're going to have to fit that block. We're going to have to make a pattern for the top and fit that block. Now, what's nice is we have several copies of these drawings, each one just a little bit different, but this one represents very close to what the side view of this block will be. So the first step is going to be, step one, I'm going to put a nice final shaping on one side so that it sits down on the block, on the crutch itself, a little tighter than it does. And I'm going to try to use, you can see one side of this block is, looks like a dinosaur took a bite out of it or something. But this actually is the only block that's big enough that we can do this whole top block without making a joint. So even if this isn't our first choice, it's the army it's the block we're going to war with. Now, I got the sandpaper down here, but it's not wide enough for this block. So what I'm going to have to try to do is, since I don't need the middle, I'm going to try to do this a little bit differently. Do about half of it at a time and just get a nice surface on one side, and then take that big carbide block and dress the rest. That's coming. Maybe I'm panicking here. The idea is with a block is not to induce a stress into it. So you've got it taped down and then you hollow it out and it goes. The idea is to get everything sitting that it's not under stress. Especially now in this case, if we can use this block and it makes a decent top block, we have that whole curve front and Gerald was good at massaging that for us. And Les, of course, did it in the past, and so did John Cafaro. But what that does is, in the Testarossa, we have a joint there, and the joints never come through, but I'd feel better without that joint there. Maybe a couple of years from now, we'll be flying a Testarossa. One day you go to pick it up, and there's that. I know Rich Oliver had a plane that the canopy, the little thing came through too. So getting this surface flat, that would probably be step one. Now this block is also good because now I see where the high spots are on here and I can work some of them. And it's not horrible, but I really do want to get this relatively flat, and it's at the two ends that it kind of bows up. And boy, we left this sitting under pressure for weeks. Now, I wanted to thank Doran again, for Doran Morisano. He's in Europe right now, I guess with his relatives or his wife's relatives, and he sent us that 6-hour video that I managed to put 1 hour on. Quite informative, and I'm not going to start. And by the way, if anybody wants a full 6-hour copy of that, I'll be glad to make them a copy. It's no problem. But I just wanted people to get a look at and some idea of how much work goes into making some of these parts. Okay, we're almost ready to, we've almost got this ready. So what I did, I cut up Gerald Champ's pattern here and traced out and left a good 1/4 inch extra for carving mistakes. But that's basically, the pink is the material that has to be removed. Then I laid the crutch on here and I can see where this material has to be removed. So if I can set up some kind of a saw or something to get a lot of that off, just save me some carving. If not, I'll just carve it off. But now we have a pretty decent idea, a relatively decent idea of how that's going to shape up, whether we have to carve it or not. Now this block is too thick, it doesn't fit under the saw, so I'm going to have to do this with a hand saw or a jigsaw or something. And I have one of those wonderful 3-wheel band saws. Every time you go to cut a piece of wood, the blade jumps off, so I think that before I even fool with that and waste a half an hour, I'd carve it by hand. But I can take this dimension off. I can take all of this wood, and the thing is, any wood that comes off now is just less carbon. And I'll leave plenty on there. I'm not going to try to even get anywhere near close. Leave a good 1/8 inch. And even just getting some of this wood off, any that I can get off, there's a lot less carbon in there. Because once we get the block shaped, then we can start working on those scoops, and that's the part that I think is really going to be challenging. And the idea is I'm going to have to, well, let me just mention this. I'm going to have to bounce between working on this on days that it's unflyable and doing this ARF development on days, and assuming we get some, because here it is, we've started 2007 and so far haven't had a flyable day. So we had such good weather. Oh God, it's like a dream when I look back at that, but now it really is like winter. Now after wasting my time looking for other alternatives, this is the easiest way I know of. Then I'll leave obviously a little extra material and do the rest of it carving by hand. But to get these really wide, high blocks, this is about the only way I know of that's going to work. Get a little more to get right up closer to the line this way. Don't need to have it perfect, but this will get us a relatively straight line that we can start with the carving. I can take a little more of this material off to bring it down to the profile I'm looking for. Again, a combination of the belt sander. We just need to get as much of this off before I tack glue it on, because it's just easier to work with. You can grab it with your hand. Once it's in the fuselage, it gets difficult to hold. See how close we're getting down to that turtle deck? Oh, we got a little more. Again, we're working off the little drawings that Gerald massaged. And I think he did a real good job of kind of zeroing in on a shape that I liked anyway. And it looks like we're just going to make it with this big dent in the wood. Again, the days of just calling up a balsa company and getting good 4 to 6 pound wood, well, they're a pleasant memory for me. So if you have a good source of wood, send me a good top block. Well, let's see if we can do the same thing up here maybe. Get some of this rough stuff off. Now what I do too is I get all this stuff just to try to keep dust down in the house, and as soon as I get a towel, I fold the towel up, either put it in a garbage can here or take it outside in the neighbor's yard and let it go in their pool. Okay, we're close on this block. Certainly close enough, and it's a little oversized in every dimension. Okay, now I like to keep the garbage can right here. You can see what I'm doing, making a little waterfall of chips. As I start to do the carving and shaping, I have it taped in place. A little bit of material on in every dimension. And just tack glued on. As soon as I'm happy with the tack glue is dry, I'll take the tape off. And we'll start the shaping.
Now, because
now usually what I like to do is leave the nose really big until I get to a spinner. But I've got half roughed out, half not. Les is here chatting with Rich on the phone, so I'm just carving away until it's time for coffee. So after 3 hours, what do you say, Les? An hour and a half? How long have you been here? 2 hours?
What? How long have I been here?
Yeah, 2 hours.
No,
well,
not even.
We got it roughed, but the next step is going to be to get it symmetrical. See, and I always use that little piece of tape down the middle. But I'll be very careful now. And then the last thing is to get the motor with the spinner on it. And I'll have to take, the motor is over there in the J Factor. Have to take the motor out so I can line up all the angles on a spinner. But just getting it roughed out today, I feel like got one step ahead. And that absolutely, that was an easy block to carve, unlike a cardinal or something. This is a pretty easy one to do. Okay, the next step is to take some of this. We've left it plenty oversized up by the nose, and start taking some of that material away with the sanding block to get the top blend in. We've got it plenty oversized now, so this will be easy. Before I even put the motor in, I can get a lot of that material out of there. Just make it that when the motor's in and it's all in one piece, I'll just have very, very small amount of work left to do. So for day one, we got some roughing out. I'm not sure how much more sanding. We got to do some work up around the nose. That was a good first session. And tonight, the little thing I want to work on here, I have a little bit of time. See here, I'm going off Gerald's drawing. So I've got to get rid of this little material here. More of a curve down in the front here to get the canopy just right. Now what I usually do here is I try to define where I want to have the change. I need to have, what I want to do is curve this down just a little bit more. So let me, and again, I better do this little by little. I'd rather do it little by little, because it's a lot easier to do it in gradual steps than to undo it all at once. So what I want to do is work on that side profile first. It needs more. Now this is one of the really difficult parts of a plane, is to get this curve where it goes around the cockpit. And so the first thing is to get this angle right. This is the kind of stuff I like to do late at night like this when the phone isn't really busy. And once I get this angle, I'm going to show this little trick that I have for doing this. Not a big deal, but something you may... Okay, a little bit more. It is what's nice about having Gerald's drawings. Les was here today. He liked the drawing a lot. But this is a critical thing. This is one of the things that it's going to take a lot of little sessions, and I may as well start it right now, to get this vision that I want up in the front. And every plane, of course, is just a little bit different. Okay, now I need to identify the middle of this when I start the carving. Okay, now from this side on, now I can start carving away. Even though I know I have a little material there, I can start this very gradual carving process. And I can bring it in this way. Now what's going to happen is this line is going to start to take a shape like this. So I need to come down, and again I'll try to do one side first, and then match, doing one side and then match the other side. Now this just really gets to be a little labor of love and a little ice shavings until I get a shape that I'm happy with here on one side, and then I work my way up to that tape on one side. And once I get one side done, then transposing it over is easy. But to get this shape, what's going to be coming to almost to a point or very sharp, I want to get that contour, and I got to do a lot of it. It's just going to take time. Now I've got half shape. Now I got to try to transpose that off into the other side. Now the hardest thing to get is this little groove that goes. So what I do, I hold my hand on both sides, and as I'm carving it in, I need to establish where that little groove is going to be for the canopy. Whatever shape I have in my mind's eye right now. Whether you're making a smoothie or a cardinal or what. And as this is evolving, this shape may evolve, it may change. As an example, getting this front angle changed as per the plans was a big step. Now I basically have to recarve and resand this. But each time I do it, I'm massaging it and getting a little fine tuning on it. Maybe that I wouldn't have if I didn't do this one step at a time. And now once I get one side half done, then the other side is rough. I want to do them both sides at the same time. You know, as I'm working this area here, this is the defining line of the canopy. And I need to have the block laying right flat as I go into that groove. And of course I'm working to try to get it even on both sides too. So it all comes to the point right here. Now as I'm working this angle in, and I'm trying to show this look from the top, trying to keep it symmetrical. The way to keep it symmetrical is figure a spot every thickness back and just measure. In this case it's about 1/4 of an inch here, 3/8, a little more, and if it's the same on both sides, that's how you get that symmetrical, like a knife-like look of it. Now, I also got a couple of dings in here I need to sand out, but every time I sand this now, and I have the block with the little relief cut back, I'm going to work into that corner. It's working into that corner, then check the measurements that you're not losing that line, that defining line. That's what really, in the end, it defines that canopy. And we want to make a really nice, unusual looking, long, pointy, kind of a racing boat, maybe for the hydroplane canopies type. Kind of something like Walt Prey would probably like. And I always try to look around as I'm doing this to get some ideas. The classic cardinal type canopies. Casmanato's canopy. This is something similar to what I like. This is Walt Prey's canopy. Just among others, and it's a good idea while I'm carving and sanding. Just walk around and try to get some more. Just steal ideas wherever you can. See, the canopy and that scoop are the kind of the defining features that we need to work on. And I'll spend an infinite amount of time if I have to working on this canopy shape. I want it to be in the end one of the defining features that I really am happy with. That canopy, and one of the next things, the scoops. So this session ends. We got the canopy at least rough sanded in. A little bit of rough sanding on the nose, and next time we get to do a session, we're going to start looking at I think the spinner fit and the cowling. Now we got up this morning and I had to decide whether to work on a 90 ship or get out here with Jose's engine. It's below freezing. There's the ice. When there's ice there, baby, there's only one way you make ice. It's below freezing. It's cold. We're going to try to get some runs on Jose's engine. Okay, we have Rich Oliver's header on there. Jose Modesto's motor. We want to ground run it once. Just make sure nothing's not the way we want it. And then what we're going to try to do is set up the tripods, and boy, it's colder than I thought it was out here because the wind is coming up already. But I'd like to get a couple of flights just so Jose can see what his motor's running like, and of course maybe this weekend we'll get him down here to fly his own motor. Now what I did, I got a couple of preliminary flights on this as I crushed juice. I got a couple of flights, and I wanted to try a couple of different props. Basically, because what's happened is Jose's motor runs almost exactly like mine. You can't tell which is which almost. Very similar. It runs the same amount of laps after the pattern, so it's very good on fuel too. That's kind of a byproduct. And I was changing props because what's happened, it's not unflyable. It's getting so breezy and hawky here. I just want to be careful, and I want to get a little bit of prop testing done, see what I can learn. For all purposes, these motors are the same. Richard's muffler is just a little quieter than mine. A little heavier, a little quieter. That's all a subjective thing anyway. Something that really doesn't even matter. To me, I like it loud. We're us tough guys. Now that I've got about a half a gallon of fuel through here, it's safe for me to say it's not a stunt pattern day, that's for sure. Not even going to bother with the tripod. But the thing that jumps out at me right away is how similar these motors are. And actually, I wound up putting the prop that I was using on my motor on. I have 4 or 5 of Rich Oliver's that have a little more pitch. It just seemed like it went right back to the 14.5 rev up whenever I flopped around. I may as well put the spinner back on. Looks like a worm my spinner not out. But what's going to happen now, I think, and I'm not sure, I have a feeling that what When Jose had this motor, they were running fuel that might have had some castor oil in it. Maybe, I don't know. Because it seems like each run I'm getting, the motor's kind of getting that feeling of just being friendlier and friendlier. And it's so similar that it's like having a twin sister. And now that I've flown 2 of these in the same ARF, I get, my opinion is this is the motor of choice for this plane. Well, I think we're just going to get one more flight here, and oh, we got some prop testing, we got some unflyable days. Believe me, when it's nasty like this here, you get up above 45, it gets nasty in a hurry. But we accomplished the mission we wanted to. We got a day of running, actually probably half a gallon, of running Jose's motor. It's getting friendlier and friendlier, and I can't explain why. I'll have to talk to Jose, see if he had run this on castor oil fuel. Usually, Richard said it takes 2 or 3 flights to wear off all that varnish and get the motor freed up. But right now, it's just about, it's to the point where, and it's this muffling system is quieter than mine, so it's deceptive. I kind of like the growl, but if you were flying in an area where a muffler matters to you, or you want your plane to sound a certain way, this certainly is a good choice. And I think it added about an ounce to the plane over what we had, which plane this size hardly even matters. I guess I'm being a sucker here because I wanted to get one more flight. Every time I get done, I think, one more. There's still some fuel in there too. It's like having a bottle of vodka. I guess you just want to polish off the gallon or whatever. But I thought if nothing else, it's going to put some time on Jose's motor with no castor fuel. It isn't going to hurt anything as we try to dial this in a little more. Again, I've come back to the 14.5 rev up, no matter what I do. I wish I knew why. I don't. Just seems to be a good combo for this engine. It'll be interesting to see if we get some good weather later in the week. But today certainly wasn't one of the good air days. Now, as we end this session, hey, it's a day that normally I would have been home anyway. We got the better part of a gallon of fuel through Jose's motor. Put a lot of little data in the database. Got to try 4 or 5 of Richard's props. And that motor, I don't know what there is about it. It likes that 14.5 rev up no matter how many times I change it. So once I get back to the house, I'll put the spinner back on it. A couple other little things I wanted to do. Bang, you're dead.